43 Central African Time. We'll take a look at this story now. The Foundation for Rights of Expression and Equality, Free SA, has raised concerns over proposed regulations linked to South Africa's hate crimes and hate speech law. The group warns that the draft rules could threaten privacy rights, blur the line between criminal hate speech and protected expression, and open the door to government overreach. More than 400 citizens have backed its call for the regulations to be revised. And for more now, we're joined by Paul Maritz, who is director at Free SA. Paul, good morning to you, and thanks for making time to talk to us.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to chatting with you this morning.
Great, it's our pleasure. So, one of Free SA's main concerns about the draft hate speech regulations is that it could threaten privacy rights. In what ways could it do this?
In various ways. We're really concerned about this. First and foremost, it's very important to note that in any democracy, free speech is the one tool that you can use to constantly keep your democracy alive. Why do we say this? Well, because the moment that a government makes a mistake or starts being oppressive, the best way to make sure that changes is at the ballot box. But people can only change it at the ballot box if they have information. So any law that seems as if it could be used to silence certain voices, voices that dissent, voices that do not agree with the powers that be, those voices need to be protected. And any law that seems as if it wants to oppress or can oppress those voices must be seriously criticized. So ideologically, I would say that, and we can get into the details of this law if you'd like that.
Where does one draw the line between criminal hate speech and protected expression? The line that Free SA says is blurred by these proposed regulations.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think that should be the first question that we ask when it comes to this. Now, what the law is currently proposing and what the regulations haven't mediated in any way is that the moment that I feel personally that you have harmed me, so this is what 4.1a of the law says, the moment that I feel that you have harmed me in a way that substitutes hate speech, then I can go to a local police office and I can open a docket, and there's no threshold, there's nothing stopping that case from being opened. But the point is, me being offended doesn't constitute hate speech. Now, in America in the 90s, Bill Clinton would have defined it as the moment that you call violence upon someone, you say that someone should be harmed, whether that's physically or emotionally, then that calls for hate speech. The problem with that is that nowadays, maybe in the last 10 years, we've seen that people being offended is often called violence. So someone who will simply be misidentified for whatever reason will say, well, violence has been acted upon my person. And the moment that we do that, we simply don't allow people to offend us anymore or to say things that we don't agree with, and that necessarily leads to an oppressive system. Whether that becomes an oppressive regime later, that's obviously a problem as well. But in the immediate, it becomes a system where people can't express themselves and can't differ from each other, and that means we can't go forward because we can't point to mistakes that are happening.
How do you respond to arguments that stricter regulations are necessary to protect vulnerable communities from hate speech and hate crimes?
Well, I would say that that's a very easy argument, but I would argue that those vulnerable communities, what they really need is a voice, and they need to be able to say this and that politician didn't do their job, this and that police officer affected me in that or that way, and that's going to call for a more open free speech legislation, a more open approach to free speech, people being able to say what they really want to say. What this law is currently doing in the 2023 Act, and what these new regulations aren't stopping, is it's simply doing the exact opposite. It's making people scared, and it's going to really open the door for people to very easily be sued. Now we're seeing things like this in the USA and the UK, where for tweets or for something that just simply someone didn't like, you're all of a sudden being sued for hate speech. I would argue that those vulnerable communities, what they really need is a voice, and this legislation will in fact make their voices silent. It won't elevate those voices, and therefore we see that as highly problematic.
Free SA has warned about the potential for abuse and surveillance and censorship. What safeguards are currently missing that could prevent this?
Well, a large amount. So just to give you an idea, even the best tech companies in the world, I'm talking about Facebook and Google and so on, they have breaches, maybe one every 5 or 6 years, where someone hacks them and gets access to the data. And then you'll get an email that says, please change your password. There's been a hack or whatever. Now, governments historically have not been as tech savvy as these companies. And so now all of a sudden, what this law is calling for and what the regulation seems to imply is that our data, our personal data, meaning where you live, how many kids you have, how old you are, what you weigh, what color your eyes is, typically the information that criminals can use to hack your bank accounts and stuff, that data will be available in sort of a mass database, and that database will be accessible from any police office or anyone that has any relevant reason to access that database. Now, first and foremost, this is going to create a massive administrative burden for the police because, I mean, they already have a few resources all over the continent, maybe especially in South Africa. And now all of a sudden, they're going to have to spend a lot of time in administration to read things into the system, but the system is then going to be broadly available, which, to be honest with you, South Africa currently has the worst cybersecurity in the world. And creating this system, we just think it's very, very dangerous at the moment. And it could lead to future danger because now your personal data is never going to change throughout your life, right? Your ID number, the number of your current passport is going to be relevant for 10 years. Your height, the color of your eyes, whatever, those things are going to be relevant forever. So once a criminal has them for the rest of your life, you're basically looking over your shoulder. And we find this highly problematic. Now, current POPI law is supposed to sort of mediate that, but still these regulations call for the collection of very sensitive data, including HIV status, including sexuality, things that we can't understand why a mass database of the police should have that in the first place. And it hasn't been clarified, like I said, in the proposed regulations, which is why we stand against them.
Right, and you are standing against them alongside 400 South Africans who have supported your petition. Are you still open with that petition? Can people still sign on?
No, so government comments closed on the 28th of January, and we want to thank those people that did have their voices heard. I do want to say that I don't think this is going to go away. So we want to call on citizens all over the continent, but maybe especially in South Africa, to have your voices heard. And remember that democracy isn't something where we go once every 5 years and draw a cross next to someone's name or face. Democracy is continuous. We have to constantly be calling upon our politicians, the people that we elected, to really do what they promised they were going to do. And in this case, it was to protect our freedoms, and they're not doing that. So we need to constantly be reminding them that they need to do their jobs.
Paul, thank you so much for your time again. We appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Have a great rest of your day.
Same to you. Bye bye.
Thanks. That's Paul Maritz, director at Free SA. They have raised concerns about proposed amendments or draft regulations on South Africa's hate crimes and hate speech law.
The rhythm of